All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Lindsay Scouras, and I am here with Allyson Stone. So excited for you to meet Allyson and hear a little bit more about her potty training journey. Allyson, tell us about yourself and your family a little bit.
Hi, Lindsay. How are you? Good to see you always. Thanks for having me here. I'm thrilled to talk about one of my favorite subjects, potty training. Have a little bit of experience, always looking to learn more and share my story, and I'm excited for a good conversation.
Awesome. Well, I do find that it is one of those great equalizers among parents. It's like you could go to a playground, you could go anywhere, and if you meet a parent with a kid roughly in the same age range, like you have things to talk about. It's like
First,
it's the ultimate conversation starter, and it gets you real close with people real quick when you start talking about body parts and things that come out of them.
all the time, just real time yesterday. Our
Mhm.
friend, who is a girl, was wearing my son's boxers at school last week because she had a little accident. So that was a park exchange yesterday with my
Oh,
friend of clean pair of boxers. Which is, of course, just a testament to parents always helping parents out. And
totally.
we say, you could keep the boxers, and she's saying, I have no use for these, I have two girls. So it was, as always, like you said, uh, it's a good subject to bond over still
Mhm.
currently.
Hmm. So tell us about your family. What have you got for kiddos at home? What's your kind of situation with work, childcare? How does that all work out for you?
For sure. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. I am a Brooklyn-based working mom. I live in Williamsburg with my family. I have two children, a boy and a girl, a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old baby girl.
Hmm.
Love them both tremendously. One of them is still in diapers, my baby, and my 5-year-old has been potty trained for actually probably close to 2.5, 3 years. We started
Oh,
him
that's
on the younger side,
awesome.
truly for no better reason that it was the pandemic. And at the time, we were at home a lot, the three of us,
Hmm.
with my husband and my son. And it just felt like the right time, especially because we were going nowhere. And
Hmm.
a lot of the times you hear from families or in conversation, friends, that it's always good to be close to home. So that's a little bit about me. I'm a Brooklyn based marketing consultant. I work with clients all over the country to bring their marketing strategies, brand identities, and stories to life.
Hmm.
And I can't wait to share a little bit about what happened 2.5 years ago, peak pandemic, when we really weren't seeing anyone
Hmm.
and decided that the time was right to potty train.
Well, it sounds like your story is probably the same of many other parents. I know I talked to many friends who had kids around that time who they're like, well, they're a little bit young, but you know what? We're not doing anything else right now. So might as well give it a shot. So tell us a little bit about that potty training experience with your first child. Obviously, like you said, you started a little bit young. Was there a particular method that you followed? How did you kind of embark on that journey, especially being at home all the time?
Absolutely. So if you know New York or you know Brooklyn, space is limited. So we got really cozy in our apartment during the pandemic, and with nowhere to go and essentially not much to do, it
Mhm.
seemed like we were kind of at the right point with my son starting to express signs of
Mhm.
wanting to potty train around the toilet, would see either my husband go to the bathroom or me go to the bathroom,
Mhm.
or just kind of become more familiar with the toilet itself, right, as
Mhm.
an object. We had to put like the little security latches. We still have them
Mhm.
on for my daughter. It's always nice,
Mhm.
the safety latches the first time around, then the second. So we, eventually kind of, uh, I remember he was like playing with the lid all the time. And of course, I'm
Mm.
like, why are you playing with the toilet? Gross. But at the same time, it is a sign, he was spending more time in the bathroom, which to us was him showing a certain sign of readiness.
Mm. Absolutely. And so when you started this journey, obviously you're at home, you're not going out, you probably have lots of time to do I don't know, research, read books? Like, did you go into potty training thinking, yes, I'm going to do it this way? And did you have to kind of morph that as time went along? Or how did you approach deciding? I guess, I think with a lot of things about parenting, whether it's feeding, whether it's sleeping, everything now seems to have a method or a name, and it's one of those things. I feel like if you talk to someone older, they're like, oh, we just did it, like, but now there's so many different ways and there's such a plethora of knowledge out there from different experts. How did you decide kind of what methodology you wanted to follow for your family?
I think that's such a great question, Lindsay. And I think knowing that there's no right way, and even
Mhm.
for me, when I share my potty training story or my pregnancy stories, which were very different from one
Mhm.
another in itself, even though it was the same, they were both my children, or I was pregnant with both of them. But I think there's no right way, and you can listen to people, hear their stories, but until you're getting down to it yourself,
Mhm.
you know, you really learn your own way. But
Mhm.
I did read the Oh Crap book,
Okay.
and one,
I did too.
yes, of course, it's pretty well known. I would love to bring attention, which I have, actually, two friends, about the red solo cup method. I've talked about
Ooh.
it on group calls like this, or
Mhm.
with Parenthood. Um, but I think what's really interesting is the red solo cup method, in a nutshell, is having a certain cup or a vessel in every room at kid level, right?
Okay.
And then having them, catching pee underneath. Actually, it's really only for boys. It's
Mm.
we'll talk
Oh,
about
hadn't thought about
my son
that.
in particular. Yeah, I should have mentioned that in advance. Um, but there's a great video on it, and we kept this cup at my son's height
Okay.
probably for like 3, 4 days. And early on, we had held a cup under him. And I remember for the first time he peed into it. And my husband and I were like, oh crap, this is working. And it was so interesting to see. So, anecdotally, I think I mentioned to you, I had a bunch of leftover uh, cups from my bachelorette party almost a decade ago, which is so funny that my
As one
mom
does.
actually held on to these. And because these were the same cup consistently, this is
Mhm.
what we put in every room. Now there's only one left, as a memento. The others have cracked or have
An
long
unused
disappeared.
one? No, I'm just kidding.
So yeah, I dishwashed them after, but it remained sterile, which is good. And then it became a really interesting process. He would pee into the cup, and then he would take it to the toilet. We would take it to the toilet, then he would flush, and of course the kids with the noise, it's like a big deal.
Mhm.
And then, um, contrary to what some other parents do, which again is totally fine, but our son got one Skittle every time he peed, and for us, it worked.
Mhm.
I'm not big on candy and sweets. We live a pretty healthy lifestyle, so
Mhm.
um, I know.
That was the exception that you made. You're like, for potty training, it's worth it. It works.
Yeah, and then it was so funny because in conversation, people are like, let me get this straight. One Skittle. I was like, one Skittle. I was like, and if he poops, two Skittles. So look, I think when you talk about incentivizing
Mhm.
children or putting something like a somewhat of a reward system, I do understand that sometimes it's not for everyone, especially when it's something like a natural function or something that you're doing
Mhm.
every day, like going to the bathroom, right? It's
Mhm.
not necessarily something, yes, we can applaud you, but
Mhm.
it's what worked for us.
Mhm.
And uh, again, kind of the progression was from the cup to the toilet, we'd celebrate, yay. And then
Mhm.
ultimately it clicked that we didn't necessarily need to do the cup to the toilet because he could just go into the toilet.
Mhm.
And then shortly after that, I've always found, even with kids in daycare or school, or not,
Mhm.
sometimes it takes a little bit longer for them to learn how to poop.
Mm.
So,
Yes, I'm in that right now with my
yeah,
3-year-old. It's like we're really good on one thing. We're still working on the other. For us, yeah, like we're doing really well on the one thing, still working on the other with the 3-year-old. So pray for us.
well, again, like take it or leave it. Happy to share. I could also shoot you a link after this call, but we are big fans of fiber gummies.
Oh, okay.
We're still big fans of fiber gummies.
Okay.
We have spoken with our pediatrician, I would say, like just in years past,
Mhm.
about this. And uh, raisins are awesome.
Mm.
Raisins are awesome for adults. They're great food. I feel like my mom taught me that.
I love raisins. I always have a little one in my lunch bag.
That's what I'm saying. They're easy, they're convenient, they're packable, they're
Mm-hmm.
snackable,
They're
they're
healthy.
they're healthy, they don't need to be refrigerated.
Mm. Perfect kid snack. All hits all the
Perfect kid
requirements.
snack and like craisins or something. Maybe you should hire us because this is a good sponsor. What is it? Sponsor us.
I know, right?
So yeah, I think that was really having learning about their diet and also which again, this is still work in progress,
Mm.
even though we're always tweaking and learning. Also staying hydrated is something else
Mm.
that we learn.
Mm. Okay.
It's good
That
for
could
the
be easy to
kids.
forget.
Yeah, it's, as I take a sip of water, it's easy to
Yeah,
forget.
right. Drink break.
Water break,
Um,
water break.
Water break. So how long, so again, I think it's a little bit different. Like for us, a big part of our potty training process was like I work full time, my husband works full time. Our child's not in daycare, but we rely on care from family members to help kind of, get through the times when we're at work. And I find with potty training, something that's really important is to have everybody kind of in your care circle on the same page, consistent with that child. So now you were doing this in a time of a pandemic where you have nothing but consistency because it's just you guys at home. How did that translate into once it was time to venture out into the real world a little bit?
Absolutely. I think I think having the ability to have a boy in a
Mm-hmm.
cup on the go,
Mm.
incredible, incredible.
In the car.
No, I mean,
Going
we've
on a road
always
trip.
pulled over. We're city people, but we
Mm-hmm.
also like to get out. So if he has to pee and he's got to, we'll pull over to the side of the road. But absolutely, really helpful, especially when you're even come to think of it, we had like we would keep a cup in our stroller,
Mm.
right? Like
Just in
underneath.
case.
Some kids have the little potties that they bring on the
Mm-hmm.
go.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, again, I think with my son in particular, it really came down to the time of life and where we were at because circumstantially, I'm not sure we would have really had that opportunity to spend so much time together. Also, big on like the underwear with like the padded underwear.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and ones with exciting characters on them. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like we hadn't really introduced my son to like characters or
Mm-hmm.
really that before underwear. And then I think the first set were like Super Mario Brothers. And then
Which is so funny because when he was that age, like, did he even know what that was? But he just knew there was
no,
something
I
cool on his
actually
underwear.
actually I stand corrected. They were like Elmo and Cookie Monster. So it was
Okay,
Sesame.
so something
The
he was
first
familiar with.
the first. And it's also really sweet because our neighbor and also our friends who live on our floor in our apartment building, their son is almost a year younger than mine. So
Mm-hmm.
we passed along all of our potty training stuff
Mm-hmm.
to them. Of course, everything is like washed and clean and so
Mm-hmm.
forth. But he's also done really well with it because it all comes from his like friend who used it to potty train and all of
Yeah,
that. So he
there's a
knows how it
camaraderie
works.
there.
There's a camaraderie. I'm definitely that parent who has like tried to get my son to wear stuff and been like, oh, your friend gave it, this is like this was his friends were twins. These were the twins, and they loved it, and maybe you too. Versus him seeing me like buy something and take the tickets
Yeah.
off myself.
Now, based on what you've done kind of with your son and what you've seen has worked, now your second child is a girl. Obviously a little young at this point. Like you said, she's still in diapers. Have you already started thinking about what potty training methods and elements that worked for you you're going to carry? Obviously, you're going to have to do it a little bit different because you can't quite do the solo cup. What's kind of your plan for number two, ironically, to get her to go on to number two?
Right, of course, of course. Potty talk. So I think with my daughter, and that's a great question. I feel like most people could probably sit here and say, "Oh, I haven't given much thought to it," but I sure have. Trust. So I think my next step there, Lindsay, is really working towards almost a progression, at least even coming up, where introducing pull-ups. We did at a certain time with my son, um, not necessarily because he was ready to potty train, but he wouldn't lay down for us to put a diaper on. And both my kids are really strong.
Wiggle monsters.
They're
They
little
just
wiggle monsters. He especially was a wiggle monster. I remember early on, and even currently with my daughter, they're like, the changing table, watch out because it gets really dangerous.
Yeah.
So almost out of like safety, we had introduced pull-ups to my son because they were much easier to put on and off while he was
Standing
like
up. Yeah.
thing and cruising. So I'm looking for those signs. And then also it just as from like a sustainability perspective, I'd love to have my daughter out of diapers because it's just better for the environment. I do know there are like sustainable diaper companies and cloth diapers, of course, but I feel like ultimately, traditional cloth underwear, I'm excited for. But I do think we have a little bit. I do think there's a fine balance from experience and also from advice that I've taken with like, don't rush it, but also don't wait.
Yeah, it seems like there's a real sweet spot that you have to kind of hit as a parent, which in many other things, it's hard to know, like, when will I know? When will it be the right time?
Yeah, I mean, when will it be the right time? And also, I think, again, like all kids are different, right? Even with like the nighttime sleeping and my son who was transitioning into a bed, from a crib to a bed once my daughter was born. He did so great with it. I still have the mattress pad, like the plastic one. I never put it on.
Wow.
Yeah, so again, I think they're like exactly what you're saying, like the sweet spot of how to drive and how to make it happen. Um and and knowing too, like we sent him to school with a pair of underwear in his backpack, bringing this conversation full circle. That's where his
Your friend
friend
got the
in
boxers.
the class, the mom texted me, oh, she had an accident. I have no clothes. I'm working, an hour and a half away. So, of course, boxers and extra pairs of underwear definitely save the day, even if you don't think you need them, right?
Right.
It's always nice to have that. And um, I do find when they're able to communicate and share how they're feeling, that's really helpful. Whereas if you potty train or start the process young, sometimes when you might feel like the child, they sometimes if you wait a little bit and they're older, they could communicate more of their needs and so forth.
Yeah.
And then books. I think Sesame Street has a few really great potty books. P is for Potty has Lift the Flap. We love that. Spent many, many hours reading that. Talking about body parts, celebrating, celebrating wins. For a while, we were like FaceTiming family members and like,
Mm.
like switching the camera angle to the toilet, like totally
Hmm.
disgusting things that probably most people, don't want to see, but
That
that's
you
the
never thought you do. Just like you never thought those bachelorette cups would serve another purpose.
just like Allison's last fling before the ring,
I feel like that's really an example of like you can look at and you can see a decade of time flash before your eyes in a moment when you look at an item like that from a certain point in your family's story to where you are now, and you're just like, wow,
yes,
the tides have turned.
this cup has been through a lot. And
Seen some things.
exactly. And I feel like over the past few years, I've probably had a few conversations with moms of boys who've used a similar method or some variation of the red solo cup trick.
Mm-hmm.
And we've like united. We've been like, oh my God, wasn't it crazy? Couldn't you believe, were you like in shock that it worked, right?
Like if anyone had told you that like 5, 10 years ago, you'd be like, oh, okay, gross. Like I'm gonna
And
walk around and
also
hold
like
it.
red solo cup, like,
Yeah.
so, this is my version of the red solo cup. And again, I what what works for me, I share to hope and inspire conversation, and for, others
Mhm.
to take what they will from it. But it doesn't always work for everyone. I think that's my takeaway from potty training, at
Hmm.
least once, is it's not one size fits all. It's different for
Mhm.
every child.
Which I think completely aligns with parenting overall, that it's like, as long as your child is happy, healthy, you got to just kind of try it out and see what works for you. And they're all so different. I think it is great when you can talk to other parents, you have that camaraderie and you can, glean some maybe similar experiences or get some tips for things that work for you, but then you get to take it and make and it's like that's kind of what we're all trying to do here in many different aspects of child rearing in a
Exactly.
way. So that's why I love to have conversations like this with other parents, find out what kind of has worked for other people, what hasn't, what you liked, what you didn't, and also just kind of like in some ways commiserate sometimes or celebrate together that we're all just trying to get
Absolutely.
through it.
We're all just trying to get through it. As you know, it takes a village.
Mhm.
And uh, all around the globe, I feel like moms and parents and caretakers and caregivers can all connect. And I just want to go back to something that you said about making sure everyone's on the same page. So
Mm.
I think that's exactly right, Lindsay, with other caregivers and
Mhm.
caretakers and people besides yourself or your immediate family that are
Mm.
also trying to go through these uh, you know uh, milestone, working
Together.
towards these milestone achievements together. And I say that because even, I see it with other things in parenting as well, beyond potty training, to have that continuity throughout. And
Mhm.
actually, as the parent, to instruct, like, hey, I know
Mhm.
when you were raising us, you did it this way, but like,
Mhm.
we're doing it this way. You're shaking
Mhm.
your head because I think you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah. I think we all have those things. Like I said, there's many times I feel like especially different generations look and go like, well, we did it like this. There wasn't so many rules, there wasn't so many methods. Like I think every generation thinks the generation after them thinks they know it all. And so I think that just comes, naturally with like evolution and as things go on and we get more and more tools at our disposal. Like you said, it's a mix of taking kind of some stuff that worked, but there's also new research, new developments, new things as far as like, you know, child development. And again, sometimes it's good to be able to take all those things, but I think most importantly, as a lot of us have learned with parenting, is like consistency is key. And so having everyone in your corner kind of be on the same page. One of my like funny moments is just that when we started potty training my son, even before potty training, my husband and I just like felt strongly about teaching him the correct anatomical terms for his body, so we didn't use any euphemisms. We just kind of were very matter of fact of like, yep, that's called that, that's called that, and like didn't make a big deal about it. And I remember the first time he referred to himself in a, anatomically correct way to my mother, she was like, I didn't know you taught him those words. And I said, well, yeah, that's what it's called. That's what we're saying. And this is how we're doing it. So it's like, I didn't even think to myself ahead of time, like, oh, I probably should have given her a heads up on that. Like, this is not something that we
Right, of course.
discuss
And
on a normal basis.
exactly. And that's just one of those things, like we were saying, what works for you or what worked for them might not work for us now, or, maybe even friends, they have like nicknames and stuff. We were the same way though. So I'm big on that too, especially, and you'll see too, Lindsay, as the kids get older and when they are in school or a group setting or a birthday party or at the library, you want to make sure that they know that they're aware, right? It's important. It's the responsible thing to do as a parent.
So it's just, yeah, and again, like many other parts of parenting, I feel like all of this is such a metaphor for all the different aspects of parenting. It's like, you're always going to come across families who have chosen to do things different. And, you kind of like navigate like, oh, okay, well, this is maybe the words we use, we say this, and you all kind of have your own way of doing things, and what works for you and your family. So.
Exactly. Well, this has been so fun.
I know. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences.
Yes, of course. I know it's unique, right? But I feel like it's an important one to share, especially with boys and maybe somewhat like stubborn boys. I feel like it's our interactive red solo cup method was something that was really, really productive and helpful and effective.
That's so good to hear. I'm so glad that you guys found something that works for you. It sounds like you're in a great place when it is eventually time, but not too soon for your daughter.
Exactly.
And but I appreciate you sharing so much about your personal story with your family. I know, for some people this conversation could be kind of awkward, but it seems like for parents, none of us have any issue jumping right in and talking about some things that we would never talk about with ourselves.
Exactly.
But it's like when it comes to our kids, we're all like, oh, well, let me tell you about this. So
Exactly.
I love that, like I said, that camaraderie.
Me too. And parenthood will do that to you, right? It all unites us.
You real quick.
Exactly. 100%.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Allyson, and we look forward to hopefully chatting with you again soon.
All right, Lindsay, this was wonderful. Thanks again. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Okay, talk to you soon. Bye.